Hi everyone, it's Lairlin. Welcome back to the channel. Today I will be working on a 6-paneled skirt. So let's go over to the sewing table and look at these pattern pieces. Okay, so this pattern piece only calls for the waistband pieces. I have the front pieces here, and I have the back pieces of the waistband, and I have the 6 panels here. This is a very I guess it's like a mid-weight denim fabric. I found this when I was visiting, I think, Philly about a year or so ago, and I've made a couple things out of it. And I think this was about 2 yards, of the denim for the skirt as well as the waistband. It may have been close to about 2.5, but I always get, extra. I did lengthen the skirt as well, so it's a little bit above the midi length. So the first thing I'm going to do is to sew these seams together of the skirt, and I will be using my industrial machine for this. This is the Juki 1181N. All right, so I have my denim panels here. I'm just doing a hidden finish to the seams, so I have the panel pieces put wrong sides together. So this is the face fabric, the top fabric that you'll see on the outside, and this is technically the inside of the fabric, or the wrong side. So I'm going to stitch that at your regular, on this industrial machine, it looks like I'm at probably about a 3 for my typical stitches, about 3 to 3.5 for my regular seams, so that's what I'm going to do. All right, so I'm just going to back stitch and just stitch as straight as I can. Quite a ways to go. It's a long panel. Take your time. And back stitch. All right, so I'm going to lift this presser foot needle up, presser foot up, and cut. And this is not like those automatics. It's just a regular, basic industrial machine, but it's heavy duty. I usually do leather pieces, vinyl, and heavy denim on this one. It can do quilters cotton linen fabrics, but multi-layered. All right, so once I'm done with that seam, I'm now going to turn this right sides together. So the traditional right sides together. Because these panels are a little heavy, I'm just going to pop a pin in on that outside. And you can kind of feel where the panel is along here. Along there. You kind of feel along there, and I'm just going to stitch down to be able to encase that seam so it's hidden. I'm not putting a lining in this denim skirt. It's quite heavy. So to have a nice finish on the inside, I could serge it, but I'm just going to do the hidden seam. All right. So now that I can feel where that hidden seam is, I'm going to lift my needle and I'm going to place the fabric right underneath it. And I just want to check to make certain that the seam is hidden underneath. So all of this will be hidden in the new seam that's created. So I can stitch just a little bit to check. It's always a good thing to do before you go forward with your final seam. It's probably a good idea to give this a good press too. All right, so I can kind of press and feel underneath there. All right, so I've checked and I can feel where my folded double seam is here. So I'm just going to continue down the panel. just want to feel as I keep going to make sure I'm on the outside of that seam to keep everything nice and hidden. And be real careful with these needles. I've heard some horror stories of those that have gotten nicked, even ER visits with the finger being punctured. Not fun. All right, so almost there, and I like to just keep smoothing with my hand and making sure that that seam is to the right of my needle. Now we'll backstitch. Okay, so I finished the seams. I just want to clip all of those little extraneous pieces of thread. It's a lot easier to remove those as you're going, as opposed to waiting to the end of your project. And we want to check the inside. So from the top, you can see that that seam is hidden all the way down. Nicely hidden. And on the inside, you have a seam that's now enclosed with a clean finish as opposed to being frayed. So I'm going to do that to all the panels, and we will reconvene to see what the skirt looks like. For those of you that are new, thanks for tuning in today and watching the channel. Please consider hitting that like button, subscribe, and give me a comment on things that you're working on, denim projects that you've made. I'm wondering if I should do a vest with this or if I should do a blazer. So let me know in the comments what you think. Alrighty, so I have changed the thread color to this ivory white color here, and I'm just going to do a quick top stitch along the hidden seam. And I've changed my stitch length to about a 4, so just a little bit longer for a nicer look. And this machine does a really beautiful top stitch. You just have to be really careful with a light contrasting color, even though it stands out and it's visually appealing. You just want to make sure that that seam is really neat along the side, because it's definitely going to be seen. So I don't go too fast. I just take my time and stitch to try to get as straight of a seam as possible. Top stitching. It doesn't matter as much if you're doing a color that's the same, but I wanted to be a little bold and try something different. So let's go ahead and lift the needle. Let's cut the thread. And I'm going to do the same thing to the outside. All right, so here's a view of the top stitching that I've done all along this first panel. And remember, I did go in to do a nice pressing of the seam just to make sure that it was nice and flat. And on the inside, this is what I'm calling your hidden seam here. So I didn't serge it. I can kind of pull that apart. So you can kind of see that's what you'll see on the inside. And I was very careful that I did not go in and hide too much of it, only because the skirt was so close to the waist measurement. I didn't want to take too much. So doing the hidden seam definitely does take up the seam allowance, so you have to account for that as well. So I'm going to do this to all of the other panels and get back to you. Okay, so here I have the side seams here, right sides together. Just going to pin this all the way down, and this is going to be a side zipper. So I just have to figure out, because I did add the pleating to just to kind of take up a little bit more of the waist, to fit the waist a little bit better. I pleated 2 in the front and also 2 in the back. So we're going to leave about another probably 8 inches open here for the zipper, and then close up the side seams. And then the last thing to do is to put the waistband on and to hem it. All right, so I have my waistband pieces sewn together, and I'm just going to do some top stitching here. Just sewing really close to the edge, just taking my time, no rush, so that it's a nice even stitch. I just want to make sure my seam allowance underneath is still all facing in one direction. So I just kind of use my hands to kind of spread that seam apart as I'm stitching. But this machine does a great job of top stitching. And I've done it on denim as well as the faux leather. I haven't really done top stitching on actual leather garments unless it was a small piece. I think I did a small handbag. And this is quite a task to get all the way around, but slow and steady wins the race here. So I just keep checking my seam allowance to make sure it's all in the same direction. And what's so important is that I take my time doing it because I have a contrasting thread. I have that off-white color on this dark denim, so it's sure to stand out. I could be a little messy with the blue because it would be camouflage with the dark color, but a definite contrast. Your top stitching, it's going to be a big feature. Almost there. All right, and last check. Right to the end. You don't really have to back stitch, but I did there because that's going to be within the seam. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut the excess. And let's just check. So, pleased with that top stitching. It looks really good there. So now time to attach it to the skirt. Alrighty, so moving on to the waistband, I have the longest machine stitch setting, which is a 9 on the Juki Industrial, and just attaching the waistband right sides together along the top. And there goes that servo motor. Let me check that out. Okay, so sometimes you get the error with the industrial machines if the tension is not quite right. And because I've gone from a single layer of sewing a seam to sewing over 4 layers because of the pleats, you have to adjust the tension. And it's important that you probably use like a scrap piece of the same type of fabric. I sometimes use that to test it. But you do get an error sometimes just because of the tension, and you cannot sew. But you know, your manual or your service person typically can tell you what those errors mean. Sometimes you can't really find it on YouTube as much. So what I'm doing is just the longest machine stitch, which is a basting stitch. I'm gonna stitch across. All right. I'm just taking my time, attaching the waistband, following the seam.
Beautiful.
And one thing that I found that helps, excuse me, when you're sewing over bulky seams, like the hidden seams here, is to use the hand wheel when you get to it and not the foot pedal. And it just makes it a lot less chance that you'll run into those errors. So just using the hand wheel to go over those thicker parts helps. And just remember to keep moving those pins. Real important. A lot of fabric here. Just a lot of fabric to work with. All right, so that's the end. I'm going to back stitch. And the remainder portion of this waistband it's going to be the facing on the inside to hide the rest of the exposed seams. So I just work on cleaning it up, cutting all those loose threads, pulling all the loose threads through to hide those so that it's a nice neat finish, and work on that hem. For those of you that are new, please consider subscribing, hit that like button, and follow me on other social media platforms as well. I am on TikTok, it's at House of a Coty Design, Facebook, House of a Coty Design and Gifts, and also Instagram at House of a Coty. And of course, my little friend is always here. Hey, Stormy, you want to come say hi? Come on, come say hi. You can say hi. You don't have to hide in the corner. Come on. Come on. You want to say hi? Okay, you can say hi from a distance. But you guys say hi. There's Stormy. Say hi, Stormy. He's a Yorkie poo. About 2.5 years old. He likes to hang out in the sewing room sometimes. All right, guys. Okay, so waistband is in, and just moving on to putting this zipper in. Have to do just a little finagling with the zipper. Once again, when you get to these thick areas, I like to use just the hand wheel to try to get over, just to make sure it's not going to either break a needle, even though this is industrial, it's possible, or de-thread the machine, you know, just to be on the safe side. And all of this part is hidden underneath the waistband anyway. Just back stitch there. All right. So let's clean up some of these threads. This is one thing with the industrial, it's not self-cutting. So you'll have a lot of little extraneous thread pieces you'll have to clean up, and this will not have a lining on the inside. But I did have to do some finagling to the zipper to get it to fit around the waist, but that's what that zipper looks like so far. Same thing on the other side. Alrighty, so this is the final portion of the skirt. The waistband's done, the zipper's been put in. Based on the measurements of the waist, I did have to make some modifications to get that waistband to fit based on the circumference of my waist. So definitely will be remaking this again. I do think for the pattern, the denim was a little heavyweight. I said mid-weight, I think it's more of a mid-heavyweight. But I think in terms of the lines, I think it has really good lines. I do think it's balanced well, but I do think the fabric was a bit too heavy. But I'm really pleased with the pleats that I put in to help with the fitting. I think they're balanced well. I think the hidden French seams, I think they worked well also. But just that waistband, I did have to finagle with the zipper. So I will most likely be wearing a vest or something with this one. But I will try it again. But again, it was a test of a pattern, and I did ended up going with, you know, this denim. But I think it's wearable. I think the 6-panel skirt, it's definitely going to be wearable. But I'll probably do a vest with this one. So thanks for watching, and tune in for the making of this vest. The last thing to do is a hem. Have a great day. Bye.